One of the questions we get asked when people enroll to be car driving instructors is they say, how am I going to be assessed? The first thing that we assess people on when they come in to be car driving instructors is their driving skills. So what I'm going to do in this tutorial is just take you through a little bit about how we assess people. The first thing that we do is assess people's operational skills, driving a vehicle. And the starting point for that is the ancillary controls. So an example would be if you're driving along and it's an overcast day and then suddenly it starts to rain, you should know how to put the wipers on. You should know how to put some water up on the screen if it's dusty and wash the dust off. You should know how to use the demister and so on. So that's ancillary controls. The next thing is if you're doing a manual assessment, we will assess you on your clutch control. Your clutch control should be smooth and controlled. You shouldn't be planting your foot on the clutch and freewheeling around a corner or anything like that. You only need, I always tell people, you use the clutch when you need it, and once you're finished with it, you should remove your foot from the clutch and put your left foot over on the footrest. So again, the clutch needs to be used smooth and in a controlled manner and where appropriate. The next criteria point is clutch coasting, which really links into that last one that I was talking about before. Probably what's worth mentioning, the other thing people do a lot during assessments is throw the vehicle out of gear when they're coming up to stop at traffic lights or stop signs or any of those types of situations. So the expectation is that as you're slowing down, you use the technique of mirror checks, so you have your situational awareness, coming off the accelerator, if need be, going to the brake, clutch in, work it down a gear, clutch release, continue to brake, clutch in, down another gear, and then as you're pulling up, brake, clutch, stop in gear, and then select first gear, ready to go. On occasions, such as on hills, you would also apply the handbrake to secure the vehicle. Okay, the follow on from that with the clutch is also stalling. We need, when we say that we need the clutch used in a smooth, controlled manner, stalling would be in the case that you come off the clutch too quickly and you don't have that smooth take up of power, bringing in the accelerator as you hit that friction point, just bringing it out nice and slowly to move off. I would also just make a little note that when we assess people, if people may stall it once or twice when they first get in because they're just finding the positioning of the clutch and just getting a feel of the vehicle. I fully accept and understand that. I'm the same myself. If I'm driving a car I haven't driven before, I like a little bit of get to know you time before the assessment starts. So, we'll cut you some slack on that. We're not going to be unreasonable on that. Okay, next we come on to the accelerator, and the accelerator should be smooth and controlled as well. It should be progressive. So when we take off at traffic lights, take off at a stop sign, come into a corner, come into a roundabout, any of those situations, your accelerator control is really, really critical, because what it's showing is that you have full control of the vehicle. And from an environmental point of view as well, we want to use what they call eco driving, where we don't create any more emissions than we need to. And also from a financial perspective, the more we're accelerating hard on takeoffs, etc., the more fuel we're using. And driving a vehicle fairly aggressively will be more likely to wear it out than driving it in a smooth, controlled manner as well. So smooth acceleration, progressive, and again, your accelerator, I would say, and also your braking are very heavily linked to the information that you're gathering with your eyes. So when I look up ahead and I see any changes in traffic, it could be that someone up ahead is braking, could be that there looks like there's going to be maybe a bus pull out from a bus stop or something like that. My tendency will be to observe the hazard and then take that information, and then it affects my driving control. So I would just ease off the accelerator rather than hard acceleration, hard braking, hard acceleration, hard braking. It's smooth and controlled. And a lot of the time, you won't need to go to the brake in that flowing traffic situation if your accelerator control is really smooth and progressive and you're using your eyes to look up ahead. Okay, next we go to gears. we need to be in the appropriate gear for any given situation. So one of the key principles when we talk about this concept of the system of vehicle control is that any given time during your driving, you should be in the correct gear, you should be at the correct speed, and you should be at the correct road position. If you've got those three things working, you're moving in the right direction in terms of what you're looking for in your driving. So at the moment, for example, I'm in a 6-speed manual car. I'm in 6th gear and I'm in an 80 zone. That's appropriate for this situation. If we come into a 70 zone, I'll ease off the accelerator, left foot on the clutch, work it down to 5th gear, ease off the clutch, and so on. So what we're looking for is the correct gear in the correct situation, and nice smooth control changing, making sure that when you get in the vehicle and you get to know the gear stick and its positioning, etc., because there's a little bit of variation from vehicle to vehicle. In this vehicle I'm in, the actual gear stick itself at rest sits between 3 and 4. So when I'm changing my gears, I'm very mindful that if I want first gear, it's over to the left and then forward into first. When I want to go from first to second, I maintain that pressure on the gear stick. So I'm bringing it down to second gear, not just hitting it down into that neutral position, because if so, it'll jump back to that 3-4 rest position. So again, 1 to 2, keep the pressure in that positioning down to 2. Then with 2 to 3, I pop it out of second. It'll jump back into that position where it will go forward into third. Again, 3 to 4 is straightforward because you're coming straight down on the stick. And then 4 to 5, pop it up, pop it across to the right, and then pop it up into 5th gear. And then finally, maintain the pressure to the right for 5 to 6 as you change up on the gears. Reverse in this vehicle has like a little safety latch underneath the actual top of the stick. You lift that up, push it through 1, 2 positions to the left, and then pop it into reverse gear. Okay, so that's our gears. Next we've got steering control and steering operation. With control of the steering, if I was steering, all over the place and didn't have control of the vehicle, that would be something that we would be concerned about. Whereas operation is more about what you do with your hands. So for example, you can use the hand over hand technique to steer, and I've got separate tutorials on those, or you can use the pull push technique, and again I've got separate tutorials on those as well, so you can see what we're talking about with those two techniques. Both of those are acceptable. Some people use only one technique and other people use the other technique. That's fine by us, as long as you're in control and as long as you're in line with what the best practice is for the jurisdiction we're operating in. When we take corners, make sure that your fingers are on the outside of the steering wheel and that you're not putting your hand up inside the wheel, under grabbing I like to call it. Also, make sure that when you're steering, you're not palming. So a lot of people like to change gears with their left hand and palm with their right hand when they drive. We want 2 hands on the wheel and we want the wheel to be controlled. You are allowed to obviously take the left hand off to change gears, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get out of first gear. People also ask us, are you allowed to let the steering wheel slide between your hands when you've come out of a corner and the steering wheel is self-correcting? The short answer is yes, but don't actually take your hands off the wheel where you're leaving the steering wheel. Let them just lightly slide through your hands so that if you do need to grab the wheel, that your hands are already in position. Okay, beyond that we've got braking, which we talked a little bit about earlier. Braking should be smooth and progressive. I like to use the heel-toe technique, so I've got pretty big feet, size 14, so there's no issues with me not being able to reach, but I plant my heel strategically so that that right foot of mine can work between the foot brake and the accelerator. And as I work across, again, my braking is very much linked to the information that's being gathered from my eyes. My reaction time as the average human being would be 1.5 seconds. So when I look up ahead, I always think to myself, I want to give myself as much time as possible to respond to any potential hazards. So I need to leave a nice healthy buffer zone between us and the vehicle in front, so I can use smooth control braking. If I do need, if some sort of hazard does pop up from the left, you know, if someone runs a set of lights or something like that, I will go to the brakes, go hard on the brakes, keep a nice steady grip of the wheel, won't be squeezing it or anything like that, and pull it up to a stop. Okay, next, road position. Road position's a very interesting one because the road position will be correct for the given situation that you're in. I could be in a narrow lane, I could be in a wide lane. Sometimes you're in a situation where you might have 2 lanes operating. You might have a big truck in the one lane next to you, and they might need a little bit of extra space. So in that situation, you have to be strategic about where you position the vehicle, and you need to also, with heavy vehicles, be aware that you're not breaking any rules about what you should or shouldn't be doing. Okay, so road position, we definitely should be inside. Like in my case now, I'm driving along and I've got a broken line on each side of me. I'm in a 3-lane situation and I'm in the middle lane. So, but I do have a truck on my left, so I'm just slightly to the right of my lane because I want to give that truck a little bit of buffer between us and them. Now the truck is pushing up just a little bit. I've got no one in my left or right mirror in my immediate presence, so I'm just mindful of that. Okay, next one is maneuver positions. I won't talk about that specifically now because I talk about the maneuvers, each have their own special little tutorial, but that is a criteria point that we're very aware of. Next one, turn positions. Turning left before, during and after a corner, and turning right before, during and after a corner. It's very important that you take great care with your road positioning. It's our responsibility as a driver to make sure that we can take a corner smooth and safe. When I take a corner where there's a curb on my left, as a general rule, I'll leave about half a meter between my tyres and the curb as I go around that corner. It also harkens back to what we said earlier about making sure that you're in the correct gear, correct speed, and correct road position for any given situation, so that when we take our corners, we're coming in, we've slowed down, we've signaled our intentions, we've had a really good look, and around the corner we go when it's safe. Okay, so they're the vehicle operation skills. I'll leave it there for this tutorial now, and in the next tutorial I'll talk about hazard recognition and decision-making skills.